Welcome to the Influencer Income Show, the only show on social media that teaches you how to become an influencer by hearing from those that are at the top of the game. I'm your host, Danny Dobrzansky, known around the internet and social media as Cooking in the Yard, and really excited for our episode today. We have Caitlin Murray from Big Time Adulting with us to talk about all the success that she's had on Instagram and social media. Caitlin, thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm really glad you're here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Danny.
Very excited to have you on with a presence on Instagram that you've built to over 1.5 million followers at this point. Probably will grow significantly before the show is aired. Your videos, some of them get tens of millions of views on there. Just absolutely impressive content and the way that you've been able to grow this. And I'd love to hear more about that. And I know the audience will as well. So why don't we just jump in, Caitlin? Can you just kind of walk us through your background, tell us a little bit about yourself and how all this got started on social media?
Yeah, sure. Pretty unconventionally, I have no background in anything related to what I do now whatsoever. I had worked in fundraising prior to starting my social media account. I I have a son who my firstborn who got leukemia, and he was diagnosed when he was 3 years old. And in that process, I was writing emails to family and friends about what was going on with my son, but also just like a, a very like cathartic, therapeutic experience for me, just the writing part of it. And it was, some storytelling and some anecdotal stuff and some humor mixed in along the way. And then like a lesson that I took with me from like a long day at the hospital or something along those lines. And this was just a personally very fulfilling experience for me. It felt great for me to just be able to put stuff out there and write it down. And eventually, over about a year, I compiled all these emails into a blog that I just wanted a space to keep things so that I could go back myself and just look back at them at some point. And eventually, the blog or the emails would get forwarded to different people that I were not on the original email list, that kind of thing. And a woman that lives in my town who is in the editing space had asked if I would be interested in her showing my blog to their publishers. And I was like, wow, that would be amazing. I love writing. And they came back and they were kind of like, well, this is fine, but like this woman is a no name. She has no following. We're not giving her a book deal. Like, get out of town. So then at that point, I was like, I guess maybe I'll start a social media account. I've kind of always had like, I like the performance aspect. I love like comedy. I like to write, all of these things. And I kind of always felt like there was something inside me that I wanted to do in that space. And obviously social media is this sort of new thing in our world as old people now, as these in almost mid 40s, right?
Yep.
But it gives you an opportunity that like never would have existed prior to that. I mean, as a mom with a 3-year-old child with cancer, a 1-year-old daughter, and then getting pregnant, it's not like I could like hit the bricks and head to LA or like bop into the Comedy Cellar down on McDougal Street in New York City at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday. So social media opened up all kinds of new doors for me. So that's how I got started.
And it really did too. The opportunities that have been created via social media have just been unbelievable and outstanding, especially as it's accelerated coming out of the COVID pandemic and
Yeah.
even beyond. And so much so that traditional media has largely shifted to social media, that space for advertising. Not many people are watching TV commercials anymore. Not many people are reading the newspaper anymore, but everybody's eyes are on social media now. And you've certainly made the most of that in that journey that you described there. And thank you for walking us through all that. That was a lot of information. What year did you get started with your social media profiles? When was that?
I started my Instagram account in like December of 2018. I was pregnant with my third child, losing my mind at home. And that's when I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to start this account. And that was that. That was when I started.
And if you were able to rewind the time in your mind and go back, the 7 or so years at this point, Did you expect any of this to blow up and things to happen the way they were, or was it just simply just a absolute creative outlet for you to get out in front of people at that point?
I wouldn't say that I definitely did not expect it to get to the point that it's gotten to. That was something that I thought, to pass the million followers on a social media account would be reserved for people who were independently famous, like had, I don't know, something else that they were doing. So to have gotten to the point that I'm at, I never could have anticipated that. I did really hope, like, that was the goal, to build a following was the goal, because I was hopeful I would be able to write a book at some point, and that was
Mhm.
my original goal going into this. So I would say, it's you have to be ready to make yourself really vulnerable and get out there and start posting things or saying things that are a little bit cutting edge or different to get attention,
Mhm.
certainly authentic, that kind of thing attracts people hugely. So it's what I hoped for, but God, I had no idea.
It's awesome when things turn up this way, isn't it?
Yeah.
And one of the things that you said there that just hits the nail on the head, as I've watched your content and seen your videos, is the authenticity and relatability. You seem like you could be anybody's mom, and more so anybody's mom after bedtime. For anybody that has kids, Caitlin's content is very much, along the lines of, I'm kind of going crazy as a mom sometimes because the kids are kind of driving me nuts, and they're funny and they're relatable, and people can really understand what's going on because they're living that as well. Has your content changed over time? Have you tweaked it to include any different variations of your content, or have you fully solely been full bore on what you're doing right now?
Well, so I would say that Instagram itself has changed a lot since I started my account. Like, Reels did not exist when I began posting on
Mhm.
Instagram. Originally, I was doing more like memes and some static posts with microblogging underneath them. And so, just due to the shift in like what Instagram is all about now versus what it was then, I've changed my approach to content
Mhm.
to match the times or whatever. I'm so cutting edge.
Just a quick break in the show to say thank you very much for watching this week's episode of the Influencer Income Show. While we're here, please take a second to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell to be notified whenever a new show comes out so you don't miss anything. If you're up for it, I'd love to see a comment from you telling me what you think of the show or any questions you've got for your favorite creators. All done? Awesome. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the show.
I'm willing to throw my kids under the bus all day long because they deserve it. But but that's one of the things, like, starting this account and then like becoming more visible and that kind of, aspect of my life now. I I just, like, I stick to kids stuff that's like authentic, relatable with a slice of humor that I think makes the real life challenges that I am kind of touching on and talking about a lot more palatable for the masses. So
Mhm.
you can almost get anything across to somebody if you're making them laugh at the same time.
That's exactly right. And it keeps people engaged and it keeps people sharing the content to other people as well. And one of the stories that Caitlin and I were actually talking about before the show started is that one of the ways that I came across her content and started laughing uncontrollably at some of the child content that's on there as well as and how relatable, like I mentioned, it is to me and my family. Is my wife sending me Caitlin's videos over and over and over again of both like, hey, look at this lady, she's hilarious, but also this is the way I feel. And to look at some of the numbers and share numbers on your videos, you're hitting the nail on the head there and doing a great job of that. You talk about the shift in technology, right? Instagram changed over to Reels away from IGTV, what, like 2021 ish, late 2020, and it was a big shift for everybody. And to be able to be in front of the camera, talking directly to it is something that is a learned skill for sure. When you're in front of people, you get feedback from their facial expressions and their body language and so forth. But to be talking to yourself in the camera can be difficult at times. When you got started with that, did you feel any of that or did it feel natural to you? And what I'm most curious about here is maybe for somebody who's looking to start creating content in the same way that you are, what advice would you give them on planning the content and then recording it like you do?
Yeah, it's definitely a hard thing that you have to kind of practice makes perfect in a lot of ways. Like the opportunities to get out there, like front facing on camera, were through your stories prior to Reels, and IGTV was around, and I was doing videos back then because let's face it, I'm a ham. I like to get out there right in front of the camera, fine with it. You have to be okay with like making yourself look like an asshole sometimes. Who knows how this is going to be received by the World Wide Web? But anyway, yeah, I think that my advice would be for anyone getting started in this space who feels nervous getting in front of the camera, that kind of thing, is to like think about what your voice is and what your tone is and what you want that to be over time. And I obviously, like, the best way to go with that is to stay true to yourself and be authentic when you're talking, because people can sense bullshit like immediately
Mhm.
for the
Yeah.
most part, or if they feel like they're being sold something by the tone of your voice, like it's very obvious. And then if you sound really nervous, unless you're being very vulnerable, it's not entertaining. So you just got to kind of like practice.
And did you take feedback or tips from other people along the way? Some people say, the comment section kind of guides them in the direction that they go, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. We can get to that here in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But, or was it just you saying, I like this, or I don't like this. I'm going to do more of this next time and less of this, that sort of thing. Who was critiquing or giving feedback there?
I mean, I'd like to say that it was just like me flying by the seat of my pants all of the time and that kind of thing, but you can't not be influenced by the feedback, whether it's like likes or comments on social media, unless you fully just decide to block that part out, which I don't. I read like almost all my comments, or I try to read. I can't read all of them
Mhm.
now, but I read a bunch, and I read a lot of my DMs, and I try to interact with my audience, but as often as I can. I think that that I saw from a pretty early point that when I was very willing to be very vulnerable and like very real about my feelings and certain things, are posts of mine that blew up at the beginning. And this was during like the days of just writing a microblog, like at having my third child, going through that newborn phase in front of everyone when I had just had that account, and being like, this sucks, like I am
Mhm.
exhausted to the bone, and god, I just can't wait to get through this phase type thing, where usually you're seeing like the joy of my life has just entered the world and my
Yeah.
soul is complete, and I'm like, yes, that too, but fuck, this sucks right now.
And there is so much of that the world really needed somebody to have a platform to say it's great, but here's all the things that are going around it, and you've done a great job in capitalizing on that for sure.
Okay.
Is as far as the business of your social media, right, you've got some pretty big clients as that you advertise with. I just saw that you did an OxyFresh campaign with them. How are you thinking about the brand deals that you do, and when brands approach you, how are you kind of mentally evaluating the checklist of things that you want to hit or you want to stay away from, and what's important to you in those deals?
Yeah, Danny, when I started this account, I never was getting out there to be an influencer. Like, I was not interested in advertising for other products or popping on to show you my new teeth whitening kit, stuff like
Yeah.
that. I always had goals like of writing a book, and then also potentially either starting my own business within this space to use my audience to put eyeballs on that product or that service or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
I played the long game. I pretty much did very little to zero advertising for about the first 4 years of having my account, and just built the community and built the audience, and you know the trust and the authenticity between with the people who were there, with like your super fans and the people who really, really love coming to watch your content. And then probably it was a little over a year ago, I started to work with some agents. My account had grown like quite significantly at that point. I think I was at around 500,000 followers, and it was just, I had hit a point where I was just getting tons and tons of new followers, like by the day, by the month, whatever it was. And I started to think, okay, I think this might be the right time to think about the business side of this. Now I've put in this like legwork, the beginning, and I'd like to, this is also, I should also be really frank in saying that, like, while I wasn't interested in really becoming an influencer, it's always been a massive goal of mine to monetize what I've been doing. So
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't quite sure how that was going to happen. And I still haven't, to be honest, like found that thing yet, but I have a lot of different irons in the fire. But in terms of brand deals and how that goes right now I have started to partner with a few different brands that like are well aligned with me that I actually use and that kind of thing. So it's still very much on brand for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And staying on brand helps that authenticity, and it helps keep your audience engaged. And when you do a paid partnership deal, the platforms will naturally kind of suppress that content and the reach anyway, because they want the ad revenue from it. But having that really good, strong audience base is so important to push past that and help you get more of those, right? When the brand's tagged in something and people in your comments are starting to say, okay, we want to see this used on bed sheets, or we want to see how you clean up your kids' play clothes with this, or whatever it ends up being, that's really important. And something that you mentioned there, in going for about the first 4 years without really making a hard push and hard focus to monetize this, is something that we don't hear of a lot on the show, and I think should be talked about, because the importance of building that super fan base, as you mentioned, the people that will walk through a wall for you if you tell them to, is really, really important in having the community grow and being able to nurture those followers. So really important point that Caitlin just mentioned there is, don't be in a rush to monetize just to say that you monetized. Build it the right way. Have people that are really bought into what you're doing. You'll be able to reap the rewards and benefits of that on the back end as your account continues to grow and those brand deals get bigger. You're almost, intentionally stepping over pennies to pick up the dollars and the bigger things down the road as you grow, which is certainly a great point to look at. And Caitlin, I guess the next question that I'd have for you, as many different sizes of creators are listening to this, from getting started or thinking about getting started to maybe people with 50 or 100,000 followers, what has the work looked like? The actual work of managing the schedule, managing the content, managing the family, getting the kids off to school every day, and then focusing on, what you're going to be putting out on Instagram. Can you walk us through a little bit of your process with that?
It's so funny because I have no process really. I just seriously fly by the seat of my pants in terms of all of it. Like I like to kind of map out things in my head in terms of how the day is going to look, maybe at the start of the day, or have like a checklist of things that I'll try to get done throughout the day, but like within no specific time windows. I like to keep it free. I like to play it fast and loose. The content stuff is like, it depends very much on how I'm feeling on a day. Like if I'm feeling sassy, or if I'm feeling like bummed out about something or whatever it is, I post what I feel like. It's very much on impulse. And then with balancing all of the other stuff, I mean, I don't know if there's somebody out there that knows how to balance things well and figure out how to fit everything squarely into a 24-hour box. Let me know, because I haven't cracked that nut yet.
That's the hardest part, isn't it? There's only that we only get 24 hours in a day. I was hoping you were actually going to tell me the secret to that, so I could be a more productive person.
Yeah.
But
let's just normalize that nobody knows. We're all like, it's like you're a duck and your feet are going under the water and trying to just stay calm on top.
And that's a great analogy, and I feel that way almost every day. It feels like, I'm trying to run across town, but I'm on a treadmill. And I think normalizing that it's okay to be overwhelmed, it's okay to have too much to do, it's okay to not always hit your business goals because you've got family things going on, and that sort of thing is one of the benefits also of having a job like this where there's not a boss, breathing over your neck. But to be able to
Yeah.
normalize and just throw it out there that everybody feels this way, I think is something that's really important to do. And Caitlin hit the nail on the head there.
This woman the other day commented on something that I had done. I was talking about my last child going off to kindergarten this year, and I was like all pumped up. I'm like, yes, everybody's
Mhm.
we made it. Like this was a milestone for me. This is huge for me. My three kids are all in full day of school right now, and I was lying on the couch as I was talking about it, and she wrote something. It would be so nice for me to lie down on the couch. My job is 9 to 6, and most moms work where I'm from. And I was kind of like, you know what, lady, I work full time, but
Yeah.
and I work all of the time because I have I have a creative brand that I'm working on and through, and your mind really doesn't shut off like that. And as we all know, like your mind does not shut off with the kids and the family and the house and all of the stuff that revolves and around all of that stuff. What I do have is flexibility, and that is a massive luxury, not only like as a mom but just in terms of the enjoyment of my job. I actually love what I am doing, so that's fantastic. But I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, I just live in life of luxury and watch fucking soap operas all day long while my kids are
Right.
like. I haven't
It,
turned
it,
on the TV in like a year. I don't know. I'm always kind of going. So
that's right. It almost gets the feeling like people think, oh, you're a full-time influencer. You must have found the golden ticket on the sidewalk and picked it up, and now you're rich and you're famous and you don't have to work anymore. The reality is that, like you said, it's a 24-hour a day job. The benefit of it is it gives you that flexibility and it gives you options. You're more in control of what you want to do. And don't get me wrong, I had a great corporate job before I came to do this, but doing this job and being in control over my entire day, my schedule, my content, my creative planning is way better than working for somebody else. And all the money that you make goes to you and your family, Uncle Sam generally as well, of course. But having all of that, the ability to do this job is a great job. And that's actually one of the points of the show, is that I want people to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly of everything that goes into this job to give people the ability to make a decision as to whether they want to pursue it, because it is not all sunshine and rainbows all the time. And especially with pay instability, some months you make a lot of money, some months you might not make as much or any in reality. That's all things that people have to consider and get ready for as well. And Caitlin laid it out great there for us. With all of that being said, if you were able to look back or turn back the hands of time again, we go back that 7 years or so, knowing what you know now, would you have made the decision to start and then grow your Instagram platform and kind of be what you've become today? Or do you think you might have done things differently? Or would you stay away from it altogether?
I would I would not stay away from it at all. I would definitely have done it all over again. It's been a great experience for me and a really rewarding and validating experience for me. I don't know how that's going to shift and change, or how I'm going to feel about it. Say, for instance, as my kids get older and they like become active social media participants or whatever that is, or how life will look then. They know about what I post about. I show them a lot of my reels. They laugh. They know I joke around all the time. I mean, I am their mom, for God's sake. But you know, I don't think I would have done anything differently. I had a lot of thoughts about what I would do with this account when I first started it, and went back and forth a lot about like where should I focus? Like do I just want to do like everyday general humor, making fun of the small stuff and being able to laugh at life when it's hard and all of that jazz. What I would say that I would recommend people to do is find a niche. Like I'm very happy that I didn't just go general and that I went towards the motherhood route, because you have a community there and you have like a very obvious target audience. So a target audience, I think, is a really useful marketing tool. to have a defined target audience.
Definitely. And that helps content grow. That helps follower growth. That is a very good piece of advice there, in that people want to show their everyday, right? There's other things that you do throughout there's many other things that you do throughout the day. You could have a channel about running a business. You could have a channel about sitting in the pickup line. There's a number of different things. But when you start to deviate off of that niche, if you wanted to start going into car mechanics or woodworking or something completely differently, you're going to lose a good segment of your audience. And by staying defined, as Caitlin says, and continuing to put out content that follows that same mold, people are going to come back more and more and more. They know what to expect from you. And then also, when you start talking about brand deals and pitching products and showing off the things that you like and use, you've got a stronger fan base for that as well. So you mentioned finding a niche. Do you have any other tips or any other gems for new or up and coming creators that you've picked up along your way on this journey?
Yeah, I would say it's really important to interact with like-minded accounts through in social media. Share something from another account that you like that has similar a content base that's similar to yours. Get noticed by these accounts. Comment on their content. Show yourself out there so that not only their followers see you, but they see you, because one of the most important ways to grow your audience is to be shared by other people who have large accounts. So if somebody with a big account shares a post of yours on any given day, you may see an influx of anywhere from 100 to 1,000 new followers from that kind of a post. So it's important to have like a network, which is
Absolutely.
something, yeah, that I didn't like going on to social media. I was like, I'm not going to interact with strangers on the internet. I'm not a weirdo. And then I was like, all right, I am. Like, for instance, listen, I'm on your podcast right now. I wouldn't have known you if it hadn't been for a DM or an email that you
Yeah.
got through social media. So,
Absolutely. And you never know what could come from that. Now, I'm not saying you're going to blow up even more from this podcast, but you never know what opportunities could come from it, right? It could get forwarded to somebody who forwards to somebody who forwards to somebody that knows Joe Rogan or whomever, right? A big name in the space, right? So having the ability to go after those opportunities is always something that is out there for us, and we never quite know what's coming around the corner next. So having eyes open, having that tribe as well on social media is a good way to vent to other people who understand what you're going through and what you're dealing with, and the day-to-day aspect and grind of it also. And people to get advice from or give tips to, and just have that localized conversation about the day to day really makes a huge difference. And I think you hit that spot on. That's something that I always try to do in my content and the people that I work with very closely also. Caitlin, we've talked about a lot here. We've talked about how you got started, how you've grown, how important it is to both your content and others to be highly relatable and authentic. At this point, I'd like to turn around the microphone to you here, so to speak. Do you have anything that you're currently working on or coming up next that you'd like to talk about or promote at this point to the audience?
so I do have some things that I am working on, sort of behind the scenes, that I don't talk about that often on Instagram or social media outlets or anything like that. One of the things I will say, just that would be of interest to other creators or people who are looking to establish a business in the social media space, is this newsletter that I put out weekly. And to be honest, before I got into this industry, I was like, newsletter, schmoozletter, newsletter, it should be called, actually. I like, sounds like a homework assignment, whatever. If you can like get a core audience in a newsletter, and this isn't something that I'm trying to do right now because I don't have like like I'm not a, say, a personal trainer who's trying to offer you my monthly program or something
Mhm.
like that, where it's a subscription based thing or any of that. But to have this other outlet, it's called the flywheel. I'm sure you know of
Mhm.
this, Danny, but like to have your newsletter promoting your Instagram, and your Instagram promoting your podcast, and your podcast promoting your newsletter, and to keep people informed and in the loop of all of the things that you're doing is truly like a great way to diversify your business and reach new audiences. So the newsletter has been one of my favorite things that I've started because I enjoy writing so much, and it's a quick and easy read and people are opening it. So it's been great for me. Outside of that, I am writing a book now, but that's like I haven't even begun talking about it because it's such a long process, and I don't want to get sick of hearing myself talk about it yet. So
We'll be on the lookout for that.
yeah, and then there are other like small business ventures that I'm chit-chatting with people about. I work very closely like with a hydration packet company called Cure. They're delicious if anyone wants to try them, but I do advising for them on content like within the company and that kind of thing. And so a lot of different stuff has opened up for me as a result.
Awesome advice that you just heard there from Caitlin. Awesome points she just made about her newsletter and being able to be one part of the machine that promotes and reaches people. And one of the other very important parts of a newsletter, I will say, is it's a hedge against something happening on social media and Instagram at any given time for any given reason, whether we like it or hate it or have any influence over it or not. Instagram could very well disappear overnight when you sleep, right? Could be hacked. Something, they could be major policy changes that impact your reach, a number of things. There are way more things that are out of our control as creators than are in there. And having that newsletter, as Caitlin mentions, gives you the ability to be at the top of the people's inbox that are subscribing every time you send it out without hoping that Instagram or whomever is going to put your content in front of their eyes. You are putting your content in front of their eyes, which is a very powerful tool and something that all creators can take away from. I wish I would have started my newsletter about 4.5 years before I actually did. And it's not that hard to do. Caitlin, can you just walk us through really quick how you have that set up? Is it a link in your bio? Is it from a website? How do you drive people to that?
Yeah, I use Beehive as a platform, and it's a pretty user-friendly platform for producing a newsletter. And I do have a link in my bio. It's like I have a link tree that links to other things that I'm doing, but here's the subscribe to my newsletter link. And then I promote it mostly only through my stories. And that's how I get subscribers for that. But you're exactly right. Like it definitely feels like a hedge against the man, if you will, who is social media, Facebook, Meta, whatever. But
yeah.
It's scary. It is scary. I did have a day like that a couple years ago where my Instagram account had disappeared one morning, and I was like, "Well, I guess that's it. Hanging up the cleats now. Got to find something else to
do." Yeah, it was a fun ride while it lasted, right? And then now it's gone.
So it's a great point to have the newsletter.
Yeah. And another thing too, Caitlin touched on it earlier, in the switch from static images and memes over to videos and reels and getting the hang of that. Not everybody made that cut. Not everybody was able to do that transition. And who knows what's coming next? I mean, we've got AI, we've got the virtual metaverse goggles things that, who knows what that could change content into. And quite frankly, if somebody decides like that's not for them, they don't like it or they don't enjoy doing that, to have an email subscriber list where you can still reach your followers and still get in front of people that you want to get in front of is immensely powerful. I recommend for everybody to stop what you're doing right now, start researching that and get that set up ASAP. Caitlin, thank you very much for being on the show today. You will be able to find all of Caitlin's information on influencerincomeshow.com. The YouTube video interview of the interview will be there as well. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Influencer Income Show. Head on over to influencerincomeshow.com where you'll find all the video streams of the interviews that we've done on the YouTube channel right on the website. Also, get the audio podcast on all major streaming platforms. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on all the platforms you watch and listen on. It really helps the show, and I would really appreciate it. See you next week.